Hi everybody, welcome back. I've got my monthly update for my Panda eyeshadow palette challenge that I've been doing for all of this year. I'm going to update you as to how the palette is looking, and I also have some changes that I want to talk through as well, but we're going to start off with showing you some pictures as to how the palette is looking now and how the palette was looking at the previous update. So this is the palette. It's the ABH Modern Renaissance, but there are a few Norvina shades in there as well, and then there's one shade from my Revolution Reloaded Hypnotic palette that I'm focusing on completely using up. So I've made really good progress with this palette so far this year. There were 14 eyeshadows in total in the palette, and there are now just 8 on my list that I've been working on. I'm going to be looking at my phone, by the way, to look at the progress pictures, but I will probably end up doing what I usually do and put up the progress pictures on the screen anyway, so you can see a little bit bigger the before and after pictures. So if we start off with the very top row, so the first shade to update you on is called Golden Ochre. This shade I used 12 times since the previous update, and this is the shade that I used to sort of tidy up the edges of my eyeshadow, make sure everything's just kind of blended that little bit more nicely. The pan on this has gotten really quite big now. There's not much of this powder left within the pan. Moving on to the shade next to it, this is called Vermeer. This one I used 6 times since the previous update. In the top picture, the pan is really quite big, and you will see in the bottom picture that there isn't any powder left. This one I've actually completely finished up. I finished that one on the 17th of July, and that means that I'm now down to just 7 eyeshadows left in this palette, so I have used up half of this palette. I'm going to skip the shade next to it. The one after that is an Antique Bronze. This is called Incense. This is from the Norvina palette. The pan has gotten slightly bigger down at the bottom of the pan. This one I used 10 times. This is a really great crease shade, great for sort of running underneath my lower lash line as well. The shade next to it I don't think has gotten any bigger. It doesn't look like the pan is any bigger on that. The before and after pictures look pretty much the same, and that's probably because I've only used the shade 5 times. This is one of 2 shades in the palette that I find quite difficult to use because it's very warm, very orange, which as an autumn, warm oranges are my kind of colours, but this one just looks a little bit off on me as an eyeshadow, so I don't tend to wear this one as much as other shades in the palette. The one next to it is called Cypress Umber. I don't think this looks any different as well in the pictures. I've used this one 10 times, and I tend to only use this one as an eyeliner or to like set a pencil eyeliner. I don't really use this one in any shape or form as an actual eyeshadow for the lid. No matter how much of it I pick up, I just find it looks muddy and it just really darkens my eyeshadow, so I'm not keen on how this one ends up looking. Moving on to the bottom shade, the second one in, this one is called Burnt Orange, and this is my go-to crease shade. It's a really nice warm toned mid orange shade. I've used it 14 times since the previous update, and you can see that the pan has gotten so much bigger. There's hardly any product left in this one now. And then skipping the next 3 because those are all empty. The second to last shade on the bottom row is called Warm Taupe. I think the pan has gotten slightly bigger. I think that pan is a little bit wider than it was. This one I've used 12 times. This one I also use as a crease shade. It's not as warm as Burnt Orange, but I also use this one on my lower lash line as well. And then the very last shade in the palette is called Railgar. This one I've used 6 times. This one, along with Eccentric, are the 2 most difficult shadows to wear in the pan because this one is also really quite warm. It's a darker orange than Eccentric is, and it just, again, just looks a little bit off on my eyes. It looks a little bit kind of too out of place. So not much visible difference on that one. That one is pretty flat, and I've only used it 6 times. And then from this Revolution Reloaded Hypnotic palette, the only shade that I'm working on is this Nude Ivory shade. This is what I use to set my MAC paint pot in Painterly. The pan in this has gotten much bigger as well. This is a really easy product to kind of work through. I'm having to use like a sharp nail tool that I only use for eyeshadows. I don't use it for my nails at all. I only use it to scrape powder products. So I use that to scrape the powder around the edges, so it's a lot easier for my brush to pick up product. And as you can see, there's not much of this shade left as well. So that's an update for both numbers, how many times I've used each eyeshadow pan, and also just some pictures as well to show you how they are visibly looking. Now, you might have thought, oh, those numbers, they're quite low, and they are quite low. And the reason for that is for the past couple weeks, I haven't been using any of those eyeshadows. And I've mentioned this a few times in previous videos, but I just really haven't been liking how my makeup has been looking for most of the year, if not all of the year, and that was due to two reasons. One, a foundation that I was using that was far too dark and far too orange. I've since decluttered that. However, since decluttering that, I have still continued to wear those eyeshadows, and I've still not liked how my makeup has looked. It's looked better because I've removed that foundation that was the wrong shade for me, but I don't like how my eyeshadow was looking. Now, I've kept these shades because they suit my autumn colour season. They're warm, they're muted, they're orange and browns, they're earthy colours, but where I'm not very good at doing eyeshadow, they just ended up looking muddy on me. They were too dark. I just didn't like how my eyeshadow was looking. So after my little Instagram rant where I first initially said I don't like how my makeup is looking, I for a few days just wore whatever makeup I wanted to wear. So I wore a different foundation. I wore an eyeshadow like this, which is a Giorgio Armani eye tint, a one and done, much lighter eyeshadow. I wore whatever lipstick I wanted. This is a Je ne sais quoi one from Lisa Eldridge. I just wore what I wanted to wear rather than going, right, what's in my project pan? What eyeshadow palette am I working on using up? And I've really been enjoying doing that, and since then I haven't really wanted to wear my eyeshadow palette. So I thought instead, how else can I work through this eyeshadow palette? Are there other ways in which I can use these shadows up? And because I didn't really want to go back to wearing them as eyeshadows, I thought, well, let's try and combine a few into a bronzer and a couple into a blusher. So I can now show you how this palette looks after I did that. So there were 7 left in here. There were 8, but then I used up one of the shades, so there were 7, and I've just got 2 in here now. So I've got Golden Ochre and Cypress Umber. So I mixed together, what was it, Eccentric and Railgar, so that warm mid-orange and that darker warm orangey red. I mixed those two together in as a blusher, and then for the rest I mixed what was burnt orange, warm taupe and incense. I mixed those 3 in together as a bronzer. Now, when I've done that before in the past, it's been too dark and it's been too patchy, so the advice that I've had was to add in some face powder. So I did. I added in my Givenchy Prisma Libre, I think that's what it's called, face powder into both of those. Some into the blusher, some into the bronzer. I also didn't want to press them as well. I didn't want to press them into a compact with a bit of alcohol in, because I don't like how that's worked out in the past as well. So what I did do is I just treated them as like loose pigments. So think of like Bare Minerals loose bronzers and loose blushes that they have. So they are in here. I did that. I wore both of them the next day, and neither of them worked. They both just didn't look great at all. The bronzer was still muddy. It was stubborn, patchy, really difficult to blend out. The blusher was just so overpowering. Honestly, even using the smallest amount just didn't look right. And again, it was patchy, it was stubborn. I couldn't blend it out. I couldn't make it into like a nice diffused blusher. So that didn't work. And this should serve as a reminder for me to not do that again, because it has never worked for me in the past before. I've not really liked how it's turned out, and I should just stop doing it. If the product doesn't work for its intended purpose, just pass it on to somebody else. Don't try and reformulate it into something else. The only product that I do find works like that is a lipstick, so I have no problems at all using my bullet lipsticks as blushes, but that seems to be the only product for me that works for other purposes. So I will be throwing away the blusher and the bronzer that I've tried to make from the eyeshadows, because I don't want to add any more of my Givenchy face powder to it, because I don't want to waste that, and I like that powder. So I'm just going to throw those 2 away. So what I'm going to do with the rest of this palette is I'm just going to declutter it. I have just had enough, I suppose, of trying to wear this palette. Yes, there's only 2 shades left in here now, I understand that, but I have said for a while on my channel that at the end of the year I want to do a big makeup declutter, and that will mostly be eye products. There's a lot of eyeshadows that I want to get rid of, and where I have at the moment just been wearing makeup that I want to wear, that I feel like wearing on the day, I don't want to go back and wear my eyeshadow palettes and force myself to wear makeup that I don't like, that I don't want to wear. Makeup is meant to be fun. So I am ready to do that makeup declutter now. I think I'm actually going to film it after this one now, and that will be up soon. So this is going to be my last video for that Panda eyeshadow palette challenge, and I feel 2 very different kind of feelings about this, because I've been doing this for all of this year. I think I have made really good progress on the palette. I used up 7 out of 14 shades, so I used up half of the palette. I had good pans in 6 of the remaining 7 eyeshadows. It was really great to see that progress month on month on month. So there's a part of me that was like, maybe I don't make them into the blusher and bronzer, maybe I just stick with it for the rest of the year and just see how much I can get through, what it ends up looking at the very end of the year. But then the other part of me is like, but you're not going to like your makeup if you do that. You haven't been liking your makeup for a long time. Don't force yourself to wear makeup that you don't want to wear. Like I've just said, makeup is meant to be fun, and I would only be doing that just to see how much progress I can make in a year. So I have decided that I'm going to stop this challenge. I've enjoyed the progress that I've made, but I've not necessarily enjoyed the makeup looks that I've made with the palette. So yeah, this is going to be my last video. Sorry if that is disappointing to any of you, but you know, it's my decision, it's my makeup collection, and I should be wearing makeup that I want to wear, like I have been doing for the past couple of weeks, and I felt so much better about how my makeup has been looking. So yes, that is the big update to do with this challenge. But thank you for following along if you've been watching this. I hope you've enjoyed the monthly updates. But it is now time to say I'm done. So thank you for watching this one. I hope you did like it, even if there was a disappointing outcome to this challenge. I will still be continuing with my project pan. I do still like project panning, so I am going to continue with that. And I think I'm going to film my makeup declutter next, so that should be the next video up on my channel, so keep your eyes peeled for that one. But thank you once again, have a lovely rest of your day, and I will see you very soon for my next one. Bye.